The Northman movie has achieved rave reviews as a sweeping historical epic. The tale is simple. A Viking prince must avenge his father to save his mother by murdering his uncle. But is this tale a myth or reality? And where does the story of Hamlet, written by Shakespeare, fit into all of this? Welcome to Bizarre History. Today we look at the real origins of Prince Amleth. Amleth's origins are subject to much debate and discussion. The origins of the name have different interpretations from different sources. Depending on what characteristic of Amleth the reader takes as his most significant trait, they are left with choices as to what led him to be named such. Amma is an Old Norse word that translates to anger, annoy. Amlóði is an Icelandic word that was a term used for a simple-minded person, a fool. Away from Scandinavian tradition in Celtic parlance, the term Amhlair is a word dated back to ancient times, referencing a court jester, an entertainer to the king who could advise through the use of riddles and puzzles. However, in more contemporary use, it's a more derogatory word referring to a person as stupid or somewhat dull. Perhaps to understand these predominantly dismissive and demeaning names, it's worth a broader consideration of Scandinavian folklore. While vengeance is the main theme in a story of family betrayal and usurping, Amleth's initial characterizing is reminiscent of the figure of Askeladden. The Ash Lad is a character throughout Norwegian folktales. The recurring structure of an Ash Lad tale is that he is ultimately underestimated, presumed incapable only to overcome the odds with a degree of cunning, outsmarting his foes. This is not to say that Amleth is the Ash Lad, far from it. Over time, the Ash Lad has become something of a symbol of Norwegian identity and is often a figure referenced for humor. The Ash Lad is from humble origins and is a Norwegian figure specifically, whereas Amleth is a prince in waiting and his father killed the king of Norway. Yet the character formation of a lone, underestimated figure, outsmarting plotting and devious enemies to huge reward, is rife throughout Scandinavian folklore. This seemingly insulting name was likely a part of building a character of unsuspected success. The first considered telling of the Amleths story belongs to Gesta Danorum, the original 12th century history of Denmark written by Saxo Germanicus. Until this documentation, it's believed the legend of Amleth was a word-of-mouth tale passed down generations. An important figure of the time, Germanicus was an advisor to Valdemar the Great, King of Denmark, as well as a theologian and historian. The 16-book chronicle Gesta Danorum was a huge undertaking and a formative document for the history of Scandinavia and other regions mentioned within the tomb. Books 3 and 4 of the Gesta Danorum tell the legend of Prince Amleth. The tale starts with two brothers and goes as follows. The king of Denmark, Rorik, makes brothers Horwendel and Fengo the rulers of Justland. Horwendel is enterprising in his role, and he kills the king of neighboring Norway and marries the daughter of Rorik. They sire a son called Amleth. Fengo, however, cannot accept his brother's maneuvering and murders his brother Horwendel before marrying his wife. To avoid the potential of being killed by his uncle Fengo, Amleth pretends madness, making himself out as broken and harmless. Amleth turns to madness and is not believed by King Fengo. He makes attempts to break Amleth's facade and reveal any plans he has for revenging his father. The first attempt is to tempt Amleth with a beautiful maiden. However, this is not successful, as the maiden does not betray Amleth. The second attempt to ruse Amleth is with a spy planted in his mother's bedroom. During a conversation with his mother in her chamber, Amleth tells how he does plan for revenge on his uncle. Amleth discovers the spy and murders him before disposing of the body in a sewer to be consumed by animals. Following this turn of events, King Fengo deports Amleth to be executed in England. He sends him off with 2 escorts and a letter to the King of England imparting instructions. Amleth smartly changes the letter with one instructing the King of England to kill his two escorts and asks for his daughter's hand in marriage. This leads the presumed dead Amleth to return to Denmark in disguise. He manages to return to the hall where his funeral is being hosted, and he proceeds to burn it down. While Amleth's sword has been rendered useless by being nailed to its sheath, he manages to swap it with his uncle's upon finding him. Then Amleth kills his uncle Fingal with his sword, and the following day is declared the king. Structurally, there are many similarities between the Shakespeare classic Hamlet and the Scandinavian mythology of Amleth. The fact they are anagrams of one another has been observed by many. How exactly Shakespeare would have come across Saxo's Amleth is subject to endless theorizing and debate. There is near certainty he would not have witnessed a Scandinavian account of the tale firsthand, though he may have read a French adaptation in print in the 16th century. Hamlet and Amleth share a similar same spine of story beats. The antagonist murders his brother to claim the throne and marry the wife of his slain brother. The young hero is the wronged king's son, who uses the veil of madness to avoid his uncle's persecution. Both stories involve plots from the king on the protagonist to rumble him, a young woman to sway him, a spy in the queen's bedroom, who is killed for their trouble, and two escorts also killed for their efforts. Both tales also enjoy a hero returning to a funeral back home and vengeance through a sword fight. Though it is clear there is a fundamentally different tone between the two, most notably in Amleth's lack of heavy-heartedness and his survival after claiming the crown. This tale of betrayal and revenge, while hugely informing Hamlet, is not the first of its kind. Throughout ancient times and societies, grand and famous tales of the same structure have appeared across civilizations. Devices found in the story have also been seen elsewhere. The use of a letter of betrayal, a traitorous letter, can be found throughout history. Many Arabian and Indian folklore tales contain this. The medieval French telling of Constantine the Great's youth contains a letter in which the instructions inside are to murder the person bearing it. The storied familial revenge tale is rooted throughout antiquity. A key example is the tale of Lucius Junius Brutus from the 6th century Rome. Though Brutus faced no trip to England or evaded temptation or spies, he had similar aggressive monologues, evaded violence through feigning madness, and came to avenge his uncle in power. In Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, the tale of Kai Khosrow is very alike in structure and story to Amleth. The lore of ancient Egypt also tells of the Osiris myth, in which a jealous, consumed brother murders the king only to be avenged by his nephew. In these ancient times, the afterlife and the importance of passage to it was held dear. This retelling and continual adaptation likely stood as a grand morality tale. It makes sense that there were stories of the do's and don'ts of claiming power. In all these stories, power is claimed in the worst way, and the person responsible eventually gets their comeuppance. It also contains a long-held storytelling theme that the sins of our predecessors carry down generations. So is it just Hamlet? Is Hamlet in fact just a ripoff? Well, yes and no. What Shakespeare did with Hamlet was take the bones of a long-told revenge tale, most celebratingly told in the legend of Amleth. Nephew, the rightful heir, revenges the uncle who wrongfully claimed it, and brought it into a realm of Renaissance thinking. Famously, Hamlet is known for his lengthy and existential asides and monologues. This is quite intentional and expressive of the humanistic perspective running through the Renaissance England of the time. At his best, Shakespeare used conscience to make his heightened tales human and relatable, notably in Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, and Hamlet. By making Hamlet a deep thinker and feeler, and making him far from certain of his uncle's guilt, Shakespeare took his revenge tale to another plane. Furthermore, he made sure Hamlet was not successful in his long-ruminated and delayed revenge, turning what was a revenge tale into a tragedy. It made a story told to this day, long after its maiden production at the turn of the 17th century. That being said, there is no doubt it wouldn't exist without the legend of Prince Amleth. Let us know in the comments below which historical figure you would like to hear the origins of next. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss a video. As always, thanks for watching Bizarre History.